Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of AWS Cloud Technology Basic to Mastery. Now, we are creating these episodes, we are creating these tutorials for you to understand everything about the AWS Cloud Technology from basic and get a mastery over it. Now guys, in today's episode, we will talk a bit about AWS's global infrastructure, how it all works, because initially when I started learning AWS, this is one of the very confusing topics for me to understand how the AWS actually works. But after a bit of research, after a bit of understanding, trying to get some videos, some contents, some blog posts, etc., I could finally understand how the AWS global infrastructure works. But I thought I'll get it in a simpler video for you all so that you all can understand how the AWS actually works. Now guys, you already know me. My name is Tejas. I am working as a technical project manager in one of the reputed IT companies in India. I am also an AWS certified solutions architect associate. It's been 3 years that I've been certified, and I have been working in AWS since past 5 years. I started working in the AWS in my previous organization, which I have continued right now, and I'm handling projects that are migrating from Azure to AWS or on-prem to AWS. I'm handling such kind of projects. That's all about me, guys, and if you want to know more, you can always ping me or comment me on this video and I'll get back to you. But please make sure that you watch the entire video, because there is a lot of information about the AWS's global infrastructure that I've provided across in this video. Alright guys, let's move ahead. I have a channel on YouTube that's called the Cloud Minds, that is specifically for this AWS course, guys. And if you have not subscribed to it, please make sure that you subscribe to it. Thank you. Alright, let's move ahead. Let's try to understand how this actually is. What is this infrastructure that we're talking about? Now, these are actually physical servers itself. When people hear about cloud, they try to understand it. They try to think about the cloud as some different kind of technology, but it is not that different if you really think about it, because these are actually physical servers located in different regions of this globe, of different continents. They are called the regions, and they are deployed. They have physical infrastructure that have been sitting, the networking devices, the storage devices, the actual servers that have been sitting on some locations across the globe, and they're interconnected via the wide area network, the AWS's, which is called the AWS's backbone, guys. All right. So initially when I started learning about AWS, I was very much, as I said, I was very much confused on how this works. And then I started to understand slowly how these all are interconnected, and I could understand that the basic structure that we can talk about is a server which are interconnected using the networking devices and networking cables. Now these, I am actually reverse engineering it for you so that you guys can understand how this actually works. Now these servers, there are many servers that are located in a huge warehouse, and these warehouses are called data centers. So the data centers, when you combine 2 to 3 or more data centers, you call it one availability zone, because that zone is a physical zone which is available for you to deploy your resources. So that's the reason why it is called the availability zone. Availability zones, it can have one or more multiple data centers. Now availability zones, the next level, the next step above the availability zones is the regions. One region can have multiple availability zones, but the only difference is that these availability zones are actually split, or these are separated by a huge geographical difference. That's because if there is any natural calamity that has affected one part of the availability zone or one part of the region, it shouldn't affect the other availability zone. That is the reason why they're separated with few hundreds to thousands of miles. We'll go ahead and look at how these actually are, where are all these in the globe, if you draw a map of all the continents, then I already have the next slide where it will talk about the regions and the availability zones that are spread across the globe. All right, guys. Now, we have reverse engineered this already, but here in this slide, if you see, the global infrastructure is actually divided into three parts. Actually, there are four. The data center, I've just not included it as of now, but they are divided into three major parts, and the availability zones have more than one data centers. So the first one is the region. Now, for example, US East 1, if you go to the AWS Management Console and if you see the drop down that is on the top right hand corner, that is the region. You have US East 1, you have Mumbai region, you have Seoul, you have different regions. If we go, we also have a live session of the AWS Management Consoles where I'll show you how to select a region, guys. So don't worry about it. You'll also get the live session of this. All right, so as of now there are 32 availability zones, and I think 4 more are coming, or they are already planning to deploy. One is in India, if you think about one, they are coming up in Hyderabad, and one they already have in Mumbai as Mumbai region AP South 1. All right, guys. So as I said, these regions will again have different availability zones. These availability zones will have different data centers, and there is something called as edge locations. Now, what are these edge locations? Edge locations are actually, they are also called as point of presence, wherein these are actually physical servers which act nothing more than a cache. Now, if the users are wanting to look at a static website, for example, these can be cached at an edge location that is close to your users, and then it can be the latency can be reduced quite considerably if your content is deployed in one of these edge locations. And the way we do it, there is a service in AWS called the AWS CloudFront. In episodes that are coming ahead, we will also discuss about the AWS CloudFront, but as of now, just try and understand and try and get an understanding that the AWS CloudFront is one of the services that provides or caches the content in these edge locations, and these are actually physical servers where the contents are cached, which are near to your users, just to avoid latency. Now, guys, if you think about it, one of the main any business, for example, one of the main purposes or one of the main goals of any businesses is to reduce latency, and these edge locations that we are talking about, they actually help in reducing the latency, guys. All right, now let's move ahead. Now, if you see, this is the global infrastructure that we were talking about. These are all, if as I said, if you put it on a map, and then if you clearly see, these are all the locations, the regions that I can say, and the regions that are already existing are depicted in blue, and the upcoming regions are depicted in yellow. Now, as we speak, this is 3rd of January 2024. The upcoming or coming soon regions must have been reduced, because they must have already converted into deployed or converted into the actually existing regions. But this is of probably August or September of 2023, this image that I've taken, and that's the reason why you could see that there are few that are coming soon and that there are few existing regions. All right, so if you think about, if you look at it, there are regions in Mumbai, there is in Switzerland, Paris, Ireland, and you can see that there is something called as AWS Government Cloud, or the Gov Cloud that they say, which is US West, and there is one called the US East. Now, guys, it must be a little confusing for you, but the AWS cloud technology is actually divided into 3 parts. There's the public cloud, there's the private cloud, and there is the hybrid cloud. Now, the US Gov Cloud, US West and US East that you can see here, they are catering to the US government, and they are private clouds. That's the reason why you can never access them. The ones that you can access are public clouds. The regions that you can access, that you can see on the AWS Management Consoles, are actually the public cloud regions that you can access. All right, let's move ahead and let's see what are the key components. As we have already discussed, these are the key components of the global infrastructure. Now I'll just read this out for you so that you can understand. AWS, a region is a geographical area where AWS has established a cluster of data centers. Okay, and that is the AWS region, guys, where you have a cluster of data centers which are again divided into the availability zones. Now, what are availability zones? Within each AWS region that we have spoken about, there are multiple availability zones. Availability zones are isolated locations which have their own infrastructure, including power, cooling system, networking, etc., etc., and they have fences, they have guards, they have 24/7 security surveillance that is happening. It is highly guarded place because the data that sits on it is of all the companies that are using the AWS infrastructure, guys. All right, now the availability zones, again, as we spoke about, they have the data centers. The data centers are physical facilities where the servers, network equipment and storage systems that make up the AWS infrastructure are actually housed. Now, for redundancy and high availability, it is always recommended for you to go for multi-AZ deployment. There is something called as a multiple availability zone or multi-availability zone deployment, so that if one of the availability zone fails for some reason, be it natural calamity or be it for some other reasons like networking or anything can happen to that. But if one of the availability zones fail, then your system will still cater to the users using the other availability zones. So we should always, it is one of the pillars of well-architected framework, which we are going to discuss in one of the chapters ahead, and this is one of the pillars of the well-architected framework. All right, guys, let's move ahead. Now, as we spoke about, actually the regions, now this has become much clearer now. If you can see, the region consists of different availability zones, and the availability zones have the data centers. There might be one data center, there might be more than one data center. All right, let's go ahead and look. If you see, this is the console, the AWS management console that you can see. Whenever you log into the console, this is the landing page where you will land first, and then you can go ahead and check all the regions, all the services here you can check. Or if you want to look for a particular service, you can just type here, for example, VPC. If I want to look at it, you can just type here, and then you can go ahead and click on the VPC. Now, the region that I was talking about is this drop down that I was talking about, where you can select the regions. When you click on one of the regions, it will take you to those regions, and not all of the services, guys, this is very important, please write it down if you want to. Not all of the services are available across all the regions. The first region that most of the services are deployed is US East 1, and slowly, once they have that service wherein the service do not have any issues, slowly they'll start to proliferate or move those services to other regions. This is very important to understand. Now, as we spoke about, the regions have multiple availability zones. Now, if you want to look at these multiple availability zones, there is something called as the resource access manager, where you can go and you can check the availability zones. Now, for example, I am right now in Mumbai region, and I can see that there are 3 availability zones: AP South 1A, AP South 1B, and AP South 1C. Now, this is important when you are doing a multi-AZ deployment, as we spoke about, because you can create the VPCs which will have different subnets in different availability zones, and you can deploy your instances or your services through this VPC, the virtual private cloud, which is one of the networking services of AWS. You can deploy in them, and then you can get this multi-AZ deployment done for high availability and redundancy, guys. So, guys, this is what I wanted to speak to you about. I wanted to give you a very brief introduction about what this AWS global infrastructure is, how does this look, and how does these data centers, where are all the situated, where are they located, and how these servers actually make up the entire global infrastructure, which is connected through a wide area network, which we call the AWS backbone. All right, guys, this is Tejas. I just wanted to give you a brief about this AWS infrastructure. And if you have liked the video, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like and share this with your friends who really want to understand about AWS and become the master, so that you can command a better pay, a better position in your company, in your project, and in your life. All right, guys, this is Tejas signing off, and have a great day. Thank you.